have a picture of Jacob and Charlie, but I am 46. I was born in 1964. I feel like we live online, so there would be no point in hiding that fact. In fact, I think I look pretty good for 46. Thank you. Jacob is 12, and Charlie is 9. But I really come here not as a mom, although that is absolutely part of who I am, but as the chairman and global president of BabyCenter and as a member of the ad tech board. I have to shout out not only to Nancy, but to Brad Behrens and the whole team at ad tech. For those of you who just attended it in San Francisco, I mean, these guys are just crushing it, and it's really, really impressive. If Brad looks tired, it's because he just flew home from India, where they're waking up the media market there, and it's just amazing when you think about the proliferation of digital media today in all corners of the globe. Brad and I were exchanging some notes, and whilst the U.S. economy is amazing, but think about India with over 1.7 billion people and 100 million internet users. So it's just the global landscape, and the way that digital has become so pervasive around the world is amazing. And iMedia and ad tech and the team here is just doing a great job in owning that. But today we're really going to talk about the journey of motherhood. And we're going to do it in many different aspects. And the way that Nancy and I have partnered on this is we've divided it into 3 sections. And so at the end of each one of these sections, we're going to take a pause and see if you have questions, if you want to have any interactions, and then we'll go on to the next section because there's a lot to digest. One thing I want to announce that Nancy didn't mention is that we have created, at Nancy's inspiration, a sweepstakes where we do run the largest panel of moms. So 5 lucky marketers or agencies are going to be allowed to ask free questions to our panel. So Dina Freeman, Dina, if you can stand up, and Julie Michelson. Julie, can you stand up for a sec? And Nancy and all the team from iMedia are collecting business cards, and at the end of the conference, we will we'll pick 5, and then we'll work with you offline, and you can use our panel to ask questions. So, so that's sort of something that we thought would be fun, so you can understand kind of how this works and how we can get you questions answered as well. So with that, let's get into it. If you see all of these different chapters, I mean, we literally have the Library of Congress about moms, and we tried to do a selection of a few of those to give you a sense of who she is and where she's going. So today we're going to start, as Nancy mentioned, with how that journey begins and that profound transformation in becoming a mom and what that actually means. From there, we'll talk about how social plays into the mix, and then finally we'll end up talking about how mobile actually supports her role for photo shoots in grocery stores and all kinds of things. So let's start. Why BabyCenter? Well, we know moms. We've served over 240 million families for over 12 years and counting, and that's around the world. In the US, we are absolutely the leader. We're the #1 parenting and pregnancy destination worldwide, so that's in the US and in most of the markets that we're in. We have over 25 million users in 22 markets worldwide. Last year in this country alone, 7 out of the 10 babies who were born were actually BabyCenter babies. And we are going into mobile like full throttle. And in fact, App Magazine just named us one of the top apps of last year, which is great. We're very much trusted. We are 3 times more trusted than any other parenting and pregnancy site, and we're recommended 2 times more than the closest parenting site. So expert content is at the core of what we do. And then we'll talk about how we amplify that in social. But this isn't a BabyCenter presentation. I just want you to understand how this research has been created and how we're bringing it to you. We're very popular and influential. Moms are much more likely to recommend information they find on BabyCenter with other moms. It's a Mindset Matters experience where moms understand that they're with other moms who have remarkably right things to share. And that creates an amazing sort of amplification channel. And then finally, we're celebrated. We just won a Webby Award last year. We're nominated for one this year. We haven't heard yet, but our fingers are crossed. And then we just got named by Consumer Reports one of the top most trusted health websites. So we really do bridge that between, expert, social, content, et cetera, which leads us to this connection with the 21st century mom. It's just not about our website. The website, I often say, it's like an iceberg. It's not about what you see on the pages. It's all the things that are happening underneath it, whether it's social or blogs or apps or Twitter or Facebook, videos, slideshows, et cetera. It all makes up this sort of ecosystem that's BabyCenter. The thing that consumers never see is this. The BabyCenter is actually an insights engine. So we do a ton of primary research. We have the largest moms panel here in the US, and we run research in every single one of our markets. And that goes from pre-con all the way through 12. Our panels, don't just focus on, because we have all these moms in different life stages, and we continue to engage with them, way past their delivery and way past the birth of their young children. We listen. So we actually, because we own our communities, we have these things called talk trackers. And that's what, when you win the sweepstakes, you'll see that we can actually listen to conversations and tell you by age, by stage, almost by week, when conversations are flaring in communities and when they're going down, when they're talking about a brand, when they're not, when they're talking about a life stage, when they're not, when they're talking about leaky diapers and when to switch, and when they're not. So we use that in crisis communication, we use that in media planning, and we use that in just engaging in remarkably right timing for brands to be engaging and when. And then finally, we have these editors around the world that nobody knows mom like they do. And they have medical advisory boards in every single country. So all of that goes into the work that we do with marketers, because marketers are our customers. So that leads you to sort of a little bit of the methodology. I didn't go into the methodology of every single one of these presentations, because that would be a whole other conference, but that shows you how we got to the information that I'm going to share now. So let's start. In the US, a new mom is born every 7 seconds. And we often think that when a baby is born, a mother is born. And that moment, that profound transformation, is why I selected the butterflies earlier, is just this metamorphosis when a woman becomes a mother. What happens to her? Well, first of all, it triggers a profound transformation in how she spends her time. When we asked our moms, before and after becoming a mom, how much time did you spend on average doing these activities? You can see that everything changes. She's desperately seeking new information, and she has countless decisions she needs to make, and she has way less time to make them. So she has 6 more hours of parenting activities that she needs to do, and she's doing less exercising, watching less TV, doing less hobbies, sleeping less, quality time, socializing, working outside the home. I mean, it's very challenging for her. And then you're going to see how that plays out. For example, if she is the Chief Everything Officer, and Dina, I'm sorry that we chose you, but you are absolutely a poster child for this, as are many in the room. It sounds like Nancy is one too. She's also the Chief Financial Officer. She's the Technology Officer. She's the manager. She's the chef. She's the chauffeur. She's making all the foods and making the food decisions. She's a professor, and she's definitely the jack of all trades. And that juggling, that sort of constant pursuit of work-life balance, of family balance, it's not really achievable for her. So she has to figure out how to integrate all of it, because she can't get 24 hours more in her 24-hour day. But if she can multitask and do some of these things simultaneously, that's actually going to help her. So what now? When we asked our moms as an example, and this is how many wash loads do you run a week? Again, this may be stating the obvious, but it's good to see it abstracted into this data. No kids, she's doing, just under 4 loads a week. As she becomes pregnant, she's doing less. And then first she has less clothes, smaller wardrobe. And then as a first-time mom with an infant, she's breaking 5. By the time she has 1 kid, and that kid is out there in jeans, rolling around in the mud and doing all kinds of things, eating solids, etc., they're at 5.4. By the time she has 3 kids, she's doing over 6 loads a week. So first-time moms are definitely challenged by a 54% increase in laundry. And it's not just the detergent, it's actually the machines. So she's rethinking all of that. When we asked this mom, she said, her mom mentioned that she actually needed to use some special laundry detergent for baby clothes. She had no idea. Does anyone know about this? So that's a question that she's asking in her 3rd trimester to understand what to do. But having a baby triggers purchase decisions way beyond just the stage of the nursery. So in the 1st trimester, she's sort of low-key thinking about things, but hasn't really activated into the purchase channel. In the 2nd trimester, that's when nursery is hot. She's doing her registry, she's getting everything set up, and then she moves past that very quickly. In the 3rd trimester, she's really focused on the big ticket items, which means she's probably getting another credit card. She's looking at appliances in her household. Those are over-indexing by 482%. She's thinking about cars, because she knows she has to take the baby home in a car seat, and she also knows if it's a 2nd baby that maybe she can't fit that stuff in the trunk anymore. So a car for 1 child, we're often seeing huge purchase in the auto space. for the second child. So understanding a second-time mom for auto, very important. It's over-indexing by 300. And then home renovation, that's over-indexing by 174. By the time she has the baby and she's into the first 6 months, it's all about sharing. So you're seeing that video cameras are going up 523 index points, laptops 354, video cams so that she can do video conferencing with grandma and with friends are going up 324, and digital cameras 236. And then after she's sort of gotten out of that phase and she's fully equipped for sharing and amplifying all the amazing things happening in her life, she moves into the planning phase. So that's when you're seeing life insurance go up with an index of 253. Investing in education and long-term savings, 228. Travel, she's finally ready to get on the plane and start see people. And then she just figured out that that laundry machine just isn't going to cut it. So you're seeing appliance purchases go up as well. But the thing that's interesting about that is not just the categories, it's the criteria. Before becoming a mom, she said, and we did these criteria against apparel, we did it against auto. I mean, I think we've done it against 12 categories. In this one, I'm showing you apparel. But know that we actually looked at this across many different verticals. Design was really important. She wanted to self-express herself, color, sex appeal, etc. But after becoming a mom, comfort, number one. Price, number two. Versatility and ease of cleaning. Again, she really can't believe how many times she's using that laundry machine, and she's trying to manage her bills because there's someone else to feed and someone else to manage. So you can see that brands like Banana Republic dropped 43 points and Victoria's Secret 44 respectively, and all of a sudden Hanes and Old Navy jumped up. So Gap was very smart to have all those brands in their portfolio because moms are changing not only their criteria but the brands themselves. And if you look at this mom, she says the cost is a factor and so is comfort. You can't really chase a toddler in 3-inch Manolos. So if you saw and you think about that first slide about time, time is key for this mom. So what happens is marketers actually lose 3 hours a day to talk to her through various media channels when she becomes a mom. So when we ask them how many cumulative hours, and we know that she's multitasking, do you spend on average with TV, print, and the web? Before becoming a mom, 9. After, 6. 10.7 additional hours of parenting cuts into media, and media becomes one of the casualties as she's making choices. But when we wanted to understand, well, what does that actually mean? What media are you using? What media are you not using? We asked her, do you regularly give each of these mediums your sole focus? Sole focus, that was the question. It turns out that before becoming a mom, TV, the web, and all other media as rolled up in the orange, had a sole focus. After, everything takes a haircut. She can't give anything her sole focus. It's the only way she's going to get all that stuff done. We used to say that, before becoming a mom, media was like a 5-course meal. Thursday night, she puts her feet up, and boom, she's in for 3 shows. Now, it's snacking. And we always say that nap time has become the new prime time. We don't literally mean when the baby is napping at a certain time in the day, but the minute she has a minute, she's snacking and she's trying to capture things. So without her DVR, she wouldn't actually be catching any media. But with it, she is watching. She just may not be watching in prime time. DVR usage, 37% are more likely to time shift after becoming a mom, and 29% are more likely to ad skip because she wants to get through that show as fast as she can. After that, the percentage that never uses magazines, 54% after becoming a mom. So that's kind of scary. I personally love magazines, but that's true. So after becoming a mom, we're stating the obvious here, but the internet really does serve her needs because her needs have changed so much. So when we asked our moms, which of these are you more or less likely to use since becoming a mom? And I know this is a bit of an eye chart, but I wanted to get everything out there for you. If you look at the internet, cell, email, TV, magazines, radio, instant messaging, and newspapers, that newspaper one is really tricky. But she doesn't want to have the newsprint, and she doesn't want to have the newspaper around, so she's checking it on the web. And I would say when you look at this in mobile, you're going to see that cell has actually grown because we've redone this in the last 60 days. And so cell phones and mobile usage has jumped tremendously. Before, entertainment was her first priority when it came to media. Now it's Q&A. She has questions, she wants answers. Almost 40% say their time online is the most peaceful part of their day because they're just there to actually get stuff done and they're feeling at peace, and they can connect with other moms. We also spoke to this BabyCenter mom, and she said her BabyCenter time with the kids is when the kids are sleeping. It's actually time for her to interact with grown-ups, but she's interacting with grown-ups around the stuff that she's doing while she's running around all day. So who is she? What are all the different roles that she's playing, and what is she doing with all this time? Well, first new role, Dr. Mom. 15 minutes with her doctor is just not enough, and how many times can she actually make that phone call? So what we found is that 93% of moms manage the health and well-being of their entire household. I'm sure there are many marketers in the room that actually think about professional detailing programs and how do you talk to doctors and healthcare professionals. You really need to put mom in that target because she needs the information as well. 84% use the web to learn about their children's health, and 82% would actually go online for a second opinion. When we talked to Tracy, she says she gathers every bit of information possible before ever even calling the doctor, which sometimes prevents an unnecessary appointment. And we've heard anecdotally all the time that moms just walk into the doctor's office with web pages printed out. And now with mobile apps, like she's researching ingredients, she's researching symptom guides, she's researching all of these things, and she's coming in to either have the doctor confirm what she already knows, or she is the doctor. I mean, she'd get 15 minutes with him or her, but 365, 24/7, she's Dr. Mom. And then there's Mealtime Mom. And again, these aren't segmentations as much as psychographics because this is all one woman or many women in various roles. 50% of moms would actually give up coffee if they could get someone to cook for them because, again, it's time. 85% do most of the mealtime preparations in their household. 81% actually started looking up different kinds of foods and recipes when they actually became a mom. And 43% started using packaged foods as a mealtime strategy. She's got to get it done. She doesn't have time. Keep thinking about that clock. Close to 90% use the internet to find kid-friendly recipes. It's higher than any other source, including cookbooks. So understanding how to get into that mix and into that conversation is critical. And then there's Green Mom. We talk a lot about Eco Mom, and it's not that mom doesn't care about the environment. She does care about the polar bears, but she really cares about her polar bear first. And so almost 90% of moms say after becoming parents, they're 89% more likely to say the environmental impact is an important purchase criteria. 9 out of 10 moms actually buy green at least sometimes. So she's looking, and she's not doing it across every single category, but she is willing to spend more when it comes to what goes into her child's body. She's very, very concerned about that, and she'll put her child before herself in doing that. And almost 92% say that concern for children is what most inspires them to be eco-friendly, compared to only 41% citing concern for the earth. So what's important when you're thinking about that, as you're thinking about your packaging and your sustainability messaging, is message to mom what's going to be good for her kids, not just what's good for the environment, because that's what grabs her. She's happy that it's good for the environment, but her first priority is protecting her own. And with that can actually trigger a lot of purchase decisions. Nancy did a really nice job at setting up that, mom is not just, the $2 trillion, and Maria Bailey has given us a lot of that data, $1.7 to $2 trillion in spending, but she wants tools, not toys. So tools that actually help her, 83% enjoy using technology and electronics. She is that accidental early adopter. Many people have said that, mom isn't comfortable with those things. That's absolutely not true. 55%, say that simplicity, multi-use, and convenience are the biggest priorities, not feature richness. So being able to upload a photo to a network is more important to her, for example, than the size of the photo. And having like 1 megapixel more. She'd be more likely to trigger a purchase if it could help her share it versus help her get like a little more pixel quality. Those kind of features are not as important to her. It's being able to take steps out of her routine because she's constantly trying to find more time. And 42% are actually interested in technologies that can empower them to be better moms. And we see this exploded when we get to the mobile mom section. So you'll see, because that has become a remote for her life. So let's talk a little bit about U.S. Hispanic mom. Many people don't realize that 1 in 4 births in the U.S. today is to U.S. Hispanic mom. And I think I see some familiar faces in the audience who were with us at our Google event in January, where we actually did a very deep acculturation study. So for those of you in the audience who want to know more about this, I'm going to give you just a quick highlight, but please reach out and we'll share with you more. because we really study this audience pretty intensely. 52% of US Hispanic moms were actually born outside the US, 60% from Mexico, 14 from Central America, 13 from the Caribbean, and 12 from South America, all having very different cultures. So if you have a US Hispanic strategy and you think it's one target, you're wrong. The only thing that binds them is language, and Spanish may not even be their primary language, which is why acculturation is really important to understand how long they've been in the US, where their mothers are from, what kind of communities they're living in, and how they're blending general population choices as well as US Hispanic choices. But they're not all from the same regions. 27% are likely to be under 30, and 44% are likely to have 3+ children. So not only is it one in 4 children in the US, but on average they're having many more children than general population. So this is a next generation. This is a very active consumer on behalf of her family, and she's raising a next generation of very active consumers. 67% say it's important to find information online in Spanish, and 60% actually respond best to advertising in Spanish, even if they're fully bilingual. So you'll see, like we call it Spanglish, where there are some ads that are actually blending both. And we're working with marketers to help them understand that because you have to create a differentiated campaign strategy when talking to this mom. So what does this actually mean for us? I mean, that was a very quick flow through the modern 21st century mom. It starts with understanding that motherhood is this profound transformation. You know, keep the butterfly in your head. Think about that as you go through the next 48 hours, because these life transitions are not just about the decision she's going to make right now. These are brand choices and relationships she's going to be engaged with for the next few decades. But it is this inflection point when she's making these changes. So understanding how to super serve her right now to create brand impressions that are going to last for decades beyond. She becomes a very different kind of consumer. So as I said, these decisions not only affect choice and brand choice, but actually affect the kinds of things she wants. And the requirements always change. Her priority list shifts. And finally, time is her luxury. So being engaging with her, stand out in a way that she can hear you. And as I just mentioned with US Hispanic mom, understand that even within this target, it's very differentiated, and it's a rainbow target, and you have to think about how you can take those messages not just to one, but to many, and meet her where she lives, because time really is her new luxury, and the utility of that is a luxury as well. So as Nancy said, I'm going to take a pause here just to make sure that we're absorbing this, and Nancy really wants to give everyone in the audience an opportunity to either comment or ask a question before we move into social. So with that, Nancy and others are on the floor with mics.
And I knew we would have questions. That's a lot of information. Thank you, Tina.
Stand up, say your name. Sean Mahoney with Facebook. How large is your online panel of moms in the U.S.?
In the U.S., we have over 10 million moms. And around the world, we have over 25 million.
We have one question here.
David Jablonowski from Starcom. I apologize if I missed it, but you talk about the stats around Hispanic moms. Can you talk about what BabyCenter does to that audience specifically?
Sure, absolutely. No, I'm trying really hard not to talk a lot about BabyCenter because I really want to talk about the 21st century mom. So I'm trying to avoid that, but believe me, we could go offline. We could get a room. We have a U.S. site and a U.S. Hispanic site, and we have sites in Mexico, Spain, Latin America, Brazil. We have full coverage of all the Spanish-speaking markets, but we actually have in the U.S. specifically a U.S. Hispanic site, and we move both back and forth between the two.
We also do have a Marketing to Hispanic Moms masterclass immediately following this keynote, where we're going to dig much deeper into the Hispanic mom segment. So,
and again, as I mentioned, we'd be happy to share our acculturation study, which is really neat. But we have a whole editorial team that just covers the U.S. Hispanic market, as well as a full media suite behind it.
Okay, it looks like we can keep moving, Tina.
Okay, social. So how does social play into the mix? First of all, it goes without saying, but it's always worth looking at the numbers to sort of put it in context. social media is mass media for moms. So when you ask a mom, do you use social media regularly? And we benchmark these because of the rigor of our panels. In 2006 to 2011 has grown 678%. And what's interesting here is that the orange bars are moms overall, and the light green is millennial moms, and the dark green is Gen X moms. And as you can see, in 2006, like millennial moms were definitely leading the charge. But by the time we even got to 2009, last year, and now, it's all moms are social moms in terms of their use of social media. But why? Well, motherhood creates a whole new kind of social circle. 58% of moms report that they have less in common with their non-mom friends after becoming a mom. 44% use social media for word-of-mouth recommendations on brands and products to buy. And then finally, let's talk to Naomi. She met her mom friends in 2006, and they talk almost every day. They've grown so close. In fact, she doesn't even know them in person, but they're some of the best friends she's ever had. So what we say there is that your BFF is not your MBF in IRL, which is that your best friend forever is not necessarily your mommy best friend in real life. So it's important to understand that these are new friendships that are emerging that have very specific context that form to these friendships. And so these moms are trusting other moms because they're coming into this channel together. It ignites an entirely new kind of participation in social media. When we asked our moms, how has your use of each of the following changed after becoming a mom? What's interesting here is that if you look across mainstream social media versus mom-centric social media, because we believe that they play absolutely harmoniously with each other. We're huge Facebook fans. We have a very active Facebook community. And we believe that vertical social networks that have the anonymity that Facebook can provide allows moms to have different kinds of conversations. So the difference between engaged in mom-centric versus engaged in mainstream social media is 106%. Because they're engaged with their MBFs and they're having different kinds of conversations. As this BabyCenter mom, Katie, will tell us, many of her friends are single in their mid-20s. They still call, but their hours are so different now. She just has such a different type of day. And not all social sites are created equally. We talk a lot about Facebook and Twitter, and we love them, and we try to understand, what's really happening there. What's really happening there for this segment is socializing and entertaining. So if you look at the key up on your, left, you see that useful information is sort of that yellow-orange color, product recommendations is red, socializing in green, and entertainment in blue. So Facebook off the hook for socializing and entertainment. But as you begin to move across that chart through the mom blogs and in vertical sites like BabyCenter, learning and deciding is really what those moms are doing. They're trying to get advice in that life stage from other moms who've either been there or for whom they can share with. And we'll go into a segmentation around that. But 72% actually trust posts from other moms shared with similar experiences. As I mentioned before, the anonymity, 71% of BabyCenter members share information they wouldn't necessarily share on Facebook. They don't want everything that they're sharing there going into their news feed. And they like the fact that they can be anonymous if they want to. And then finally, Twitter and other platforms are great, but it's not content-rich enough to actually understand, to share and learn. So let me show you an example of why a mom needs a mommy best friend. We did an experiment where we actually asked our moms, when do you tell your children the truth about the tooth fairy? We posted the same question at the same moment. It was actually Summer, who runs our trade research. And we asked that question to Facebook, and we asked that question to BabyCenter community. And as you can see, on Facebook, you get, your typical sort of party, hangout kind of answers. Her friend Jimmy says, what do you mean there's no tooth fairy? Wait, no one ever told me about that. People are sort of having fun. There's no tooth fairy. There isn't Santa either. Sorry to be the one to tell you. So again, these kind of sophomore quotes, before their teeth fall out, maybe it's cheaper then. So lots of funny and, funny conversations that people might say in a bar setting or in a social party-like setting. On BabyCenter community, and we actually had to cut this off, we have reams and reams, and you can't read this from there, but this is a very thoughtful answer from what we call a field expert, somebody who really thought about this. She talks about the magic of childhood. She talks about dispelling myth and the virtues of fairy tales and how to think about that, and she goes on and on and on. Different kind of answer. Both fun, both irreverent. One is useful to that mom, and one is making that mom laugh, but not necessarily something she's going to take back home and use. So again, both very engaging, but different kinds of results from different platforms. So if there's all this conversation going out there, and everyone says, social, 678%, like what are they talking about? And how do I find it? We said it's like boiling the ocean. Social media really has evolved to social marketing, and there are so many conversations, but how do you begin to think about those conversations? Which are the conversations that matter? How do I begin to differentiate them? And that sort of curiosity is the thing that led us to doing our social influencer study, because we wanted to understand who was having these conversations and how are they all the same or how are they different. And so we began to segment that, and it turned out that the 80-20 rule applies here too, which is that 80% of the comments were coming from 20% of the audience. And so we said, okay, if it's the 80-20 rule, let's focus on that 20%. I want to understand who is that 20% and how are they all the same? Is it all mom bloggers? Is it all happening in online communities, in vertical communities? Where is it happening, and how do I reach them? Well, it turned out that those 20%, we called them the influencers, right? But within that, we actually began to differentiate who the influencers were. So if you look on the vertical axis, you see high posts and low posts, and then along the bottom, few friends and many friends. And we began to measure that in a very deep segmentation study. And it turns out that there are 3 segments amongst that 20%, those influencers. The first is field experts. Those are stay-at-home moms, typically with a topical focus on parenting, who've actually done the homework and they're there to help. That's the one who wrote the tooth fairy example. That's the one who's going to tell you how to deal with a picky eater. That's the one who's going to tell you how to get to sleep through the night. And that's the one that's going to give you mealtime tips and everything else, because she cares, and it's not the same one. They tend to be focused on the things that they're passionate about. Then there's the life casters. She's telling you that, she had sprinkles on her donuts because when she got to Florida, there was a Dunkin' Donuts and she was so excited. She's telling you about her new pair of black pants that make her look so skinny. And she's telling you kind of everything and anything because she's living her life in public. And then finally, there's the pros. We love the pros. Those are our mom blog friends. We know them. They've actually turned their passion into a profession. But they don't represent the biggest part of that audience. Finally, the people who are kind of in that aggregate audience are the butterflies. People who have tons and tons of friends. They're not posting that much, but they've got lots of friends. And the audience, which are just people who are watching. They're the ones who are reading a lot of these posts, but they're not necessarily creating them, and they don't necessarily have lots of friends, but they're using it for research and other things. Let me tell you a little bit about these segments so you can kind of understand. Let's start with the field experts. So for example, this is someone, as I mentioned, here she's saying when she travels with her children, she found that. She's that one who always starts from her own experience, from something that she's learned, and she very much feels like her journey made her set up to want to share. And so she wants to tell you all that she knows. She's a stay-at-home mom with a topical focus on parenting in this case, but there are field experts in every vertical. You know that person with the green thumb in gardening. You know that great chef. There are field experts across so many different communities. She's young, but she's an experienced stay-at-home mom, likely. You'll find her sharing robust advice and opinions on parenting-focused sites like BabyCenter and others. She tends to live in that vertical space, and she tends to curate and host large conversations where she's posting a lot and people are reading exponentially more. She's driven to share because she's faced a lot of challenges, or she's faced an experience, and now she feels like she wants to amplify that. And she's actually sharing advice related to her expertise. So she writes product reviews, and she definitely forwards articles. And some of our field experts are generating more than 1 million page views a month. Not in what they're writing, but in what people are reading from them, because they're so well respected. Then there's the life caster. As I told you, she just found her best pair of skinny new jeans. She's getting ready to go to the park. She's living in public. She's always connected. She's constantly communicating, and she tends to be more of a millennial mom with young children. She's staying home, but probably just temporarily while she's raising her young children, but she'll go back. She's one we like to call a true maven. She thrives on being recognized. She likes to be that in the know person who has an answer for everything. So she doesn't go that deep in any one area, but you never know when you're going to get a great tip from her. That great new restaurant, how to get a reservation, how to do this, how to do that. She's just a maven, jack of all trades. You'll find her living her life in public on Facebook. She's posting every day to her huge network of friends, but she is interacting with her mommy best friends in places like BabyCenter. And she's sharing everything, but deals is a big thing that she shares. Understanding that pictures and photos and life stories are not the only thing that gets shared. Social platforms are fantastic to put coupons and deals through, and we find that after our birth clubs, our bargain hunter and coupon boards are some of the most active, and our lifecasters, along with the field experts who care about that, are very, very active in that environment. And finally, there are pros. We love this segment because mom bloggers have really taken it seriously and they've turned their passion into a profession. And for them, Twitter networks are very important because essentially they're publishers, right? So they're creating their own distribution channels. So places like Twitter, having people sign up to get alerts when they do a new post, letting people know that that gets amplified. Link love across different blog networks, very, very important for this mom because she's a pro. And so she's her own publisher, she is producing stuff, and she's turned her social outreach into a passion, and a passion into a profession. Tends to be more Gen X with kids, and she's self-employed. She can be found, entertaining and educating people with large followings on Twitter on a variety of topics. She doesn't always stay in one specific focus. She's driven to share because she actually has a strong point of view, and she has an amazing voice. But she actually also has an eye towards self-promotion because she wants to build that audience. She's very confident and loves giving her advice. And she does extensive research before making recommendations on a broad set of topics. So some of them have been paid where she's actually, and she discloses that, or we hope that she does, and all the best ones always do. And she's received products to review. Again, think of her like a journalist. She's a publisher. And she makes up a key part of the influencer segment. So all that kind of quick social ride, what does it mean for you? Or what does it mean for us, because we're so in this with you, is that mindset matters. Like, build your social strategy around inflection points when consumers are actually seeking new relationships and information, because that's when they're most engaged in sharing, amplifying, learning, and engaging. Context absolutely frames the conversation. So moms use different social networks for different things. I'm on Facebook all the time. I tweet constantly. But when I actually want to get an answer, my son Jacob, and don't tweet this please, was supposed to be in a speech tournament on Saturday, and he was having some trouble with his speech. And they said, does Jacob want to do it? Does Jacob not want to do it? Like, that's not something I would post on Facebook. That's something where I actually went to my mom network and said, how do I help him make this decision? And give him the right to make the decision, not take it away from him. Very different kind of question than something that I would put on Facebook. On Facebook, I would put, Jacob won. For those of you who didn't know, for those of you who haven't followed me, Jacob wasn't in the speech tournament, but he did decide to go to karate boot camp and got a yellow belt. So I'm very proud that he had that experience and has that memory, not the memory of not going to the speech tournament. So that's not something, again, that I would put on Facebook. Of course, it's not stopping me from sharing it with everyone in this room, but I'm trying to make the point that I use different things for different uses. Things that I post onto LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. It's a great way to find new members of our team, to support members of our team, and find great talent to bring into the organization, but not necessarily where I'm posting things that are celebrating Jacob's yellow belt. So different vertical networks engage me in different ways, and I'm all those people. So it's important for me to understand how to use those, and I'm just one of many, but we see that play out in all the data. And then finally, the 80-20 rule applies. Think about that ocean, and that 80% of the comments are created by 20% of the audience, and that social moms yield a lot of influence, but they're not all the same. And engaging with your field experts, understanding how to get a lifecaster to amplify your message, and then building a direct and meaningful relationship with a pro are all parts of a social strategy. So again, I'm going to pause here, because that was a lot of information, and I want to make sure that if anybody had any thoughts, questions, that we give an opportunity to do that. Maria. Oh, sorry. I knew it wasn't my job to call on people. But I cited her data, so she gets to get the first question.
I'm Maria Bailey, and I'm the author of Marketing to Moms and Power Moms. And You kind of alluded to it, but I'd like to hear your response. You used the word that makes me cringe, stay-at-home moms, because I think moms have redefined what that means. And you were talking about like mom bloggers who are professionals, many of them in the home, so you might consider them stay-at-home moms. How does your audience define work at BabyCenter?
That's a great question. And SAHM is an acronym that comes from our audience. Our audience calls themselves SAHMs or SAHDs. So stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home dad is very much the word that, like a lot of the things that you'll hear in the quotes that we're doing are coming directly from the audience. So working within the home, working outside the home, I'm sorry it made you cringe, but I'm absolutely reflecting what the audience is about. Oh, absolutely. And every segment, everything that we went through in 21st Century Mom, a lot of those quick tours, a lot of those moms are stay-at-home moms, and they change. They on-ramp, they off-ramp. They take a time to work from home, they take a time to work from out of their homes. They are, again, I heard this in the latest economy downturn, that it was a man session. So if you haven't heard that expression, people are like, what does that mean? Well, actually, what that means is that women were much more tooled to handle the latest economic downturn because they're used to multitasking, they're used to generating new kinds of income, they're used to off-ramping and on-ramping, they're used to job sharing. They created flexibility as part of the new generation of the American workforce. Men have been less tooled to do that. And so what we found is that a SAM, SAHM, actually is in and out of the home. And income is not necessarily in a traditional, white-collar, blue-collar environment that you're used to seeing. So I don't know if that debunks or sort of gives more color to what you were looking for.
So it's a term that they're self-identifying with,
Yes,
the stay-at-home mom.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are all of those acronyms are pulled directly from the community. They're not acronyms we created.
Hi, I'm Melissa Carr from Party Light. We're candle parties and kind of like Tupperware. Anyhow, my question is for the social media channels or verticals you mentioned, I was just curious and kind of surprised that YouTube wasn't mentioned. And I just was curious about if there's anything in the research where that came up or if that's more considered entertainment versus...
I think that YouTube, we don't think YouTube is, when you think about all the communities that we live on, YouTube for me is a user-generated content social sharing environment, but not social to where people are actually, the context is not necessarily framing the conversation. So there's a ton of discovery that goes on YouTube. YouTube is a hugely active channel for us at BabyCenter, and all of our educational videos are out there. But it's not a place where friendships are necessarily nurtured. Information is found, but it is a social site. If you put social in the context of user-generated content, then absolutely YouTube is a place where tons of content gets posted, but we didn't look at it. We looked at it in the context of what moms were sharing and how to create amplification networks as opposed to user-generated content networks where people are just posting content.
We also do have a master class following this keynote on video and moms' usage and consumption of online video.
Any other social questions before I move on? Okay. This is the only time you'll hear in a conference you can put your cell phones on. Yes, wait, one more question in the back.
We're both coming at you.
Okay. Michelle Ashby from Tipping Point Media.
Hello.
Hi. Quick question for you on African American moms. We do a lot of health work in the health space, and this is a really important demographic. Can you say anything about those moms?
Absolutely. Love that segment. Very hard segment to segment when it comes to reaching. U.S. Hispanic moms, one of the ways that we're able to reach her is because of the language. And so whilst on BabyCenter, we actually have African American bloggers and special content for African American moms, and we nurture the communities of African American moms, it is a harder segment for us to actually target because there's no self-identity. Unless it's self-identified, it's not something that we would ever do. So we think it's a very important audience. We know that African American moms have, just like any culture or any race, ethnography, religion, they all bring a certain point of view, every single one of those, to their experience, and it's often influenced by their communities, but it's not something that we target directly because we can't. But to the extent that we can, we do have a lot of outreach, a lot of content, and a lot of communities and professionals on our boards and in our blog network for Momformation and other places where we can actually talk to that community directly. But it's not the same as U.S. Hispanic because of the language. Great. So with that, let's get mobile. Talk about tipping points. Today is absolutely the mobile inflection point, and mom and her mobile phone are attached at the hip. So, when you think about the tipping phone for smartphones, just to put it in context, we've seen penetration go from 10% to 50% in the last 3 years. In fact, 1 in 3 people in the US actually have a smartphone. And what you see, just so as you can understand some of this data, is that the gray people represent general population, and the blue will represent moms. In this particular case, no, but this is a very extensive study that we just launched. In fact, I recognize some faces in the room who were with us when we launched it a few weeks ago in New York, and we'll be rolling this out across the country, and this is an hour-long presentation of which I'm just going to give you some highlights, but if anyone is interested in learning more, again, feel free to reach out to us. What's happened is that moms are actually more mobile than the rest of us. Makes sense, right? We told you all about Chief Everything Officer. We told you all about all of her multitasking needs. Well, finally, there's a remote for her life. So when we asked Gen Population and moms, do you have a smartphone? 50% of Gen Pop said they did versus 59% of moms. In fact, moms are 18% more likely to have a cell phone than average population. And what's happened is it's actually became a trigger for mobile adoption. 53% purchased a smartphone as a result of becoming a mom. And as I talked to you about apparel earlier, and I said we had it on auto, and we had all the different criteria for feature sets against many different categories, well, we just did it against mobile. Before becoming a mom, you can see that context, text messaging, email, internet browsing, clock, those were top 5. Top 5 now, camera is her #1 usage. Well, she has something to share. She has something to take pictures of. She's going into that Lifecaster segment. She wants to give something to talk about. 78% rise. Video cameras, and then, with what Flip just announced, I still can't get over that one, 167%. And with Flip off the market, you're going to even see that number go up. And finally, apps are up 67% after becoming a mom. Wasn't even on her list before. And often that's not really for her, it's often for her kids. And we'll talk about the multi-use in her house. For this study, we did 5 deep surveys of both Gen Population and of moms. And then we actually went and we did a 2-month ethnography where we studied 23 moms. We went and lived in their homes. They did 1,000 text logs, 200 videos were uploaded, and 32 hours of in-home interviews where myself, other members of our team, we rode in minivans, we went to gymborees, we sat in kitchens. We really wanted to understand who this mom was and how she was using mobile in her life. So they, as I said, they're very much attached at the hip. They check their email first thing in the morning. Email is absolutely how they start their day, and we'll talk a little bit about that and what that means for marketing. At 10, they're looking at maps and they're reading SMSs. They're texting with babysitters and other child care supporters if they've got multiple kids and they're running around. They're taking pictures at the store. They're posting to Facebook. Going to an ice cream parlor, and the first time they're actually able to check nutrition. They never did that before because they never were armed to be able to do that. They're using Pandora for bedtime music as they put their kids to sleep. And then finally, they're checking email before bed, and they're checking the weather for the next day to get themselves ready to get into the field. So what it turns out is that a smartphone actually complements the rhythm of becoming a mom. It allows her to feel like she's actually doing everything, and it gives her a sense of mastery that actually makes her feel better. 2 out of 3 moms say that their smartphone never comes between themselves and their family, and 66% actually like to use their mobile phones when their children are happily playing independently. What we found is that mobile is literally a helping hand for mom. It keeps her kids engaged when she needs a moment. And so a lot of that app usage that gets stored is not necessarily for her because she likes to use apps, but she also is a huge mobile browser. It's also about her kids. 75% of moms actually let their child play with their smartphone. I'm sure that's underreported. 22% of apps on her phone are for her kids specifically. Sure, that's underreported. And this mom, Robin, said, seriously, she just hands the phone over when she's totally desperate for a few moments. And I think we kicked that off this morning with Nancy doing just the same thing in a photo shoot. It's her do everything device. When we asked our moms, when it comes to mobile phones, is it more about efficiency or getting stuff done? And when we asked that question in 2009, it was all about efficiency. But finally, moms are actually getting to have some fun because she can snack and do it real quick. So social gaming has become a guilty pleasure. Moms are 30% more likely to have guilty pleasures than the rest of her apps and population, which is really amazing. So a guilty pleasure to her is Facebook. A guilty pleasure to her is Angry Birds or Words with Friends, or even listening to music. She's so task-focused that finally she gets to have a little bit of fun. But it absolutely helps her relax. In all the research that we've seen, we've never actually seen a gadget or a platform that actually words like stress management come in, but 45% of moms report that their smartphone decreases their stress levels. They feel connected, they feel in control, they have the information, or they may just have a fun picture that they took that morning and they can look at it and smile and relax. So I know that Christine Saw, my dear friend who is just moved to Chicago, well, Christine was at BabyCenter when she had her baby, and we feel like we all gave birth to that baby. But last night I got to see how adorable she is at 2, and it was the first thing I asked her, like, let me see your phone. Not let me see the pictures, let me see your phone. And I got to visit with her daughter, and that just made me so happy. It decreased my stress levels, so thank you very much. 27% actually feel a sense of calm after using their cell phone. And this mom, Teresa, says the size and the ease of her phone allows her to actually relax and listen to music all the while tucked into bed. So she's using it all the time for different purposes. All of this actually makes motherhood this gateway to mobile addiction. 51% of moms say they're addicted to their smartphone. And 78% say they, I-L-O-V-E, all caps, love their smartphone. When we asked what words best describe how she feels about her smartphone, 58% said social, fun, cool, happy, engaged. Would you think that these would be words used to describe technology? So it's counterintuitive, but she's the early adopter. And she loves it, and it makes her feel powerful in control. She's unlocked the potential. In fact, she's written it a Valentine. She loves this product. It is a remote for her life. 68% actually understand how to use most of the features of her smartphone. 57% have over 10 apps downloaded. And she's a power user. She picked it out. 77% did that. 77% actually set it up. And 75% are actually doing their own troubleshooting. You're not seeing the same with the VCR. Like this thing, like just do not. It's like you've heard, like if you're ever, in an animal park, don't get between a mom and her cub. Same rules apply. But media consumption has evolved. Along with her smartphone adoption, when we asked our moms on average, how many hours a day are you actually spending with all these different mediums? It turns out that mobile is getting the most usage. But it's not for one thing. It's for the web, it's for email, it's for apps, it's for SMS, it's for voice, it's for music, all the things that you heard about is blowing away any other kind of consumption. And what's turned out, in the old days, portals evolved in order to be sort of grab your attention before you got to your email. And having run AOL's networks and AOL.com, I know that people come to those areas because they come up when you go to get your email. But now that she can go directly, the inbox is becoming the new portal. It's the first thing she checks in the morning and the last thing that she checks at night. When we asked our moms, when do you check email on your smartphone, you can see that it's actually creating its own prime time in a funny way. And so for us, understanding that 78% actually use email on their smartphone to filter incoming communications, it's very important because it's part of the mix. And this is not a flight to mobile. We really believe that you have to think about how does mobile work in the overall marketing mix. Because moms are browsing both apps and the mobile web. So when we asked our moms, when using your mobile phone, which do you use more often, the web, the internet browser, or the apps you've downloaded? Amongst moms, of course, who have both. And internet browser is 36%. Both are saying they only use 22%, but she downloads 3 times as many apps as she actually uses. So when consulting with marketers, what we say is, first, understand what kind of app she's downloading, because oftentimes she has 1 or 2 pages on her smartphone that are dedicated to her kids. And then understand that if you've taken the time, the money, and the effort to launch an app, your marketing actually begins at that launch, not at the conception of the app, because getting her to use it, getting her to come back, getting her to engage is critical if you think that app is going to be working media for you. So understanding that you don't need to, today, retrofit everything to be mobile. That's going to happen, and we recommend you do it as quickly as you can, but you can only do so much so fast. But ads become a new way to have utility, and you don't need to have a mobile app or a mobile website in order to have a useful mobile ad. And so thinking about that over time, you'll understand that utility is key in thinking about the creative in this particular environment. So when we ask Gen Pop and Mom, which features are most appealing to you in a mobile ad? You can see the mom is the blue line and general population is the green line. Coupons, number one most important thing she wants, and then deals nearby. So understanding the value and understanding how to find it, drive to a map, drive to a GPS. Understand that on that phone, she probably has a music account. She definitely has GPS and maps, and she has an inbox. So thinking about how to activate the utility that's already in her hand is really key, because you can make calls on the phone to these various features and functionality and have it play through in your ads. Moms respond really well to it. When we asked our moms, which of you took an action? Of those who took an action, which action did you take after seeing an ad? Well, 46% have actually taken an action after seeing an ad on their smartphone. And then 52% followed up with more research later. 51% said they actually talked to someone about it. And 31% actually clicked to go to that mobile website. So again, yes, get your sites mobilized. Think about your mobile strategy. But know that an ad where all the utility is in the ad is okay too, and is a great place to start. So finally, what does this actually mean for us in this room? Well, I believe that mobile gives mom absolute superpowers, and she's feeling better than she's ever felt before. She feels empowered, she feels connected, she feels confident. That when you're thinking about your social strategy, we talked about a multi-platform social strategy, but no social strategy would be complete without thinking about mobile. Because she's in the field, and a lot of what she's doing, she's reporting when she's not at her desktop or her laptop. So understanding how you can pull mobile through social is very important, because she's leading the charge, and she over-indexes on using social on mobile way beyond Gen Pop. And that's in the larger presentation, but I think it's a key takeaway I didn't want you to lose. And then finally, mobile creates limitless ways to engage. So new ways to learn, new ways to share, new ways to act, and new ways to connect with brands. And so I think that thinking about putting mobile into your mix is critical. And so I'm going to take a pause there to see if anybody has any questions about mobile or any questions for the overall presentation.
There's a question in the back. I'm going to ask one as I'm heading back there to get Marty's question. I'm curious, over the course of the whole presentation, one of the things that kept coming into my mind was life cycles of moms. So moms of infants versus moms of toddlers versus tweens and teens, and moms of kids going off to college. How is some of the trends, how do they change based on mom life cycle?
Well, I think that becoming a mom is the most engaged part of that consumption, because it's that transformation. So she goes from being a woman to becoming a mom. And I'm not talking about the nursery and the things she's actually buying to tool herself. I'm talking about the products, the brands she changes for. Nothing is as impactful as what happens in those early years, because then she often lives off of a lot of those new brand choices and new relationships. It does change, however, through the life stage. So I think that we could look at every single segment of the life stage. The one that we know the best is conception through age 12. So I can't really speak to you about teen and moms of college-age students, but we know that there are absolute inflection points for all of it, and we sort of study it almost by week so that we can understand it, but it would be too general a question for me to be able to answer specifically. But the highest impact of change is in the early years, because that's when she's gone through this transformation, and we don't really see another big transformation until, I hate to say, like menopause in terms of brand choice changes. You have teen, living outside the home, becoming a mom, and then moving into a next chapter of womanhood. And those are the big inflection points for women. And this one actually has the most change and most buying power because of all the things she's consuming against this life stage.
Tina, Marty from iMedia. Just as it relates to mobile, one of the things I would be very curious to either get your insights or perspective on the impact of the tablets for the iMom, the digital mom, and what you're seeing within your community and how that's impacting change and behaviors and habits.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. What we're seeing with tablet, and tablet is happening so fast. I mean, you can't even get an iPad 2 today. I mean, you can get one, but you have to wait a couple of weeks. So, and then Android tablets are really starting to hit the market. So I would say that we need to look at that market almost every 30, 60, 90, 120 because of that's how fast they're rolling out. But in terms of early usage for BabyCenter specifically, we are seeing that tablet is behaving less like a mobile phone and more like a laptop in that the browsing is very much optimized in a tablet environment. And so you're still able to do a lot of the GPS and other things, but you're just starting to see, I mean, the iPad 2 just got a camera, and it just got, the ability to do FaceTime. So these behaviors are emerging behaviors, and I think we can learn a lot from smartphone there in terms of the utility calls that iOS and that the Android operating systems are going to help mom do. But until that becomes the GPS that actually gets, Velcroed into her car, and the other things where you're going to see, I think you're going to see all kinds of science at home technologies and other types of geolocation technologies and FaceTime and connection technologies all emerge on the tablet platforms. But because it's not mainstream enough yet, some of that emerging behavior is very much early adopter. And I actually mean a lot from the technology providers, right? Because it's all getting out there. For us, in terms of our traffic, we're seeing that's mostly web traffic that's coming through the Safari iOS browser, not as engaged in the apps on the tablets versus on smartphones. So I think that's because of the screen size. But I think, ask me that question in 30, 60, 90, because it's changing a lot. And I think after this Christmas holiday, so looking into Q1 of next year, where we're going to see huge tablet growth and penetration, you're going to see a lot of new and different things. But I think one thing I'll say about tablet is that it's an amazing educational tool. And so I think that moms, much more even than smartphones, if you're going to buy something that's going to be a family shared platform, I would say that tablets will definitely win the day because it's a phenomenal platform for learning.
My name's Jim Waters. I'm with Digitas. What's your understanding of how moms are using apps? So are they downloading maybe less than the general public, but using them more? Because it seems like they wouldn't download as many because they don't have the time to kind of play around with them. I mean, what's the feeling?
Just the opposite, actually. They're downloading more than the general public, but they download 3 times more than they use. They are not downloading for themselves alone. They're downloading for multiple people. So, by a show of hands, well, firstly, by a show of hands, how many people here have kids? Okay, and then keep your hands up if you have apps on your phones for your kids. Okay, there you go. Thank you. So, so it's not just for moms. So you can't abstract that data and say moms are downloading this many apps. You have to understand that she actually probably has. And I saw, having spent time with Layla and Ty and some of the other moms that we did the ethnographies with, they're very organized. So they actually have whole folders, whole pages that are just dedicated to their kids. So that's the second insight. They are downloading more than they use. And then finally, they're using different apps to help them at different stages of their development. So what we see is that in the later stages, weight loss apps, science at home apps, those types of apps are utility, but their apps are also helping them do snacking. So, a quick Pandora, listening to music or catching a TV show, reading, looking at something online, iTunes, etc., is great. So it's also enabling guilty pleasures that she didn't have before. So I'd say that she is an active app user, but that you have to market the engagement around that. Don't just put it up there and think she's going to come.
How are you seeing the growth of your own app for BabyCenter and kind of the usage habits around
Amazing.
That
so thank you for that. That was a softball. So far in the U.S., we have, just to put in context, there's only 4.3 million births in the U.S. in a year. We only launched our iPhone app mid last year, and we already have over 500,000 users on iPhone, and we launched our Android app 3 weeks ago, and we just broke 100,000, and that's in the US alone. I was in London 2 weeks ago and met lots of BabyCenter moms there that are using the iPhone app, and we just shipped it to 6 countries last week, and by the end of June, we'll be in 17 countries with iPhone, and Android will follow. And then we're also doing a lot on the text messaging, SMS to voice in the developing world, where moms don't have smartphones, but they need access to critical information to support them in their maternal journeys. So we look at mobile as a very diversified portfolio. And so we look at tablet, as we just talked about. We look at smartphone, Android and iOS. We look at text messaging. When you go to India, and Brad can back me up on this, there's 5 to 7, 8% internet adoption and 57% mobile adoption, but not smartphones. Yeah, a little bit of smartphones. We're talking about a $20 handset that text messages. So we're actually developing daily SMSs that go to voice for the low literacy community, which represents a large segment of the population. With 135 million births in the world. It's a very complicated market, but I do believe that mobile and mobile services will be an inflection point to educate a whole new generation of moms. So it's a long answer to a short question, but we think about all of it, and it's very important to detail mom wherever she lives.